So
Awesome.
now it should
That's
be.
really cool.
Has anyone got a?
We are.
Is it open? We can just check that it's worked, but according to me, it has.
I will just quickly check.
Jonghwi, how is the? Sorry, how is your name pronounced correctly?
Jonghwi.
Jonghwi.
Yes, that's correct.
Jonghwi Park.
You're Tino.
And you're, yes, I'm Tino. But you're not Chinese. You're Korean.
Yes, I'm Korean, South Korean.
Okay, good. So though it's nothing. Okay, great.
Yes, live now.
Perfect.
Okay, so we have 1 minute to go, and then we can start right on time. Perfect.
Okay, so I roll down the usual.
Perfect, thank you.
Very shortly.
And the anecdote could be what kind of digital skills we might have learnt in the past week, COVID.
No, I can't. I have another anecdote. I can't.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, you're going to surprise us with one. Okay.
Okay. Yes.
Okay,
just fresh from the oven.
Okay. Good.
Okay, we're ready.
Yes.
So, good evening, everybody. We are again here, gather another Kiron Talks session with guests from all over the world, exactly from Hamburg, Munich, Berlin, and but we are internationally minded, and we are talking about the digitalization of society, of learning, and of the new experiences we make since the COVID-19 virus is the world. Today we have a special guest besides Dominique Orr from Kiron Open Higher Education and Sabrina from SEND, the association for entrepreneurs and those who want to become some, for social entrepreneurs to be precise. And our special guest, Jonghwi Park, who is a program specialist for the UNESCO Institute of Lifelong Learning. And we start, as usual, with a little, introduction by each of our participants. I'm as egoistic as I am there's a really interesting experience I made today because, you see, we take ourselves all so very importantly, but I think if everybody would have died now from the virus and nature would have taken over quite quickly and without much of a fuss. I was in our house in Brandenburg on the countryside, and now I came back home today to deal with the things that I can't do from there. And I have I have a bed that is upstairs. It's a high bed, and in the corner of the bed is a little window which I like to open when I sleep, so I have the fresh air directly beside my head. And this little window is usually a little bit open. I was away 3 days, 4 days or something. And now I just noticed that there was a pigeon trying to get in, and I hushed it away. And then I went up to look, and it was about to construct a little nest in the corner of the bed, which had already carried some of the little sticks and branches, and was about, imagine, 1 week later, I would have had a pigeon family in my house. Yeah, very philosophical. Okay, so Jonghwi, you're our new guest. So please tell us something about your work.
Okay, so my name is Jonghwi Park. Thank you for the introduction. So I have been working at UNESCO since 2011 as the ICT and education specialist. I lived in Bangkok until October last year, and I found it very different living here in Hamburg from Bangkok. I'm a mother of 2 kids. I'm experiencing as a parent how online learning and COVID-19 has affected to the learning. And originally, I'm from South Korea, and I'm closely watching what's happening with the online school opening and all these things that Korea is doing in response to the COVID-19 crisis. Is that enough.
Well, that's wonderful. Did you experience also something strange or new in the last days?
Okay, let me think. No, actually not really, but I'm really, really tired of my own cooking by now. I cook like 3 meals a day for myself and my family, and I'm sure my family is also sick of my own my cooking. They want to eat out, but there's no option. So I really hate instant food. I'm really, really how can I say, particular about what to eat. But now I don't care anymore. I just buy instant pizza and eat those things. And yeah, that's a change. But other than that, not really. I'm actually enjoying teleworking and spending more time with my family.
Oh, Dominic, after Sabrina's self-introduction, please tell us in 2 words again something about Kiron, because I'm not sure that everyone knows what it is. Sabrina, hello.
Hi. Hi, everyone. So I'm Sabrina. I also do work at Kiron, but I'm also the board member of the Social Entrepreneurship Network. And I'm excited that we have those sessions now every week with exciting guests like you today. And I think, living in solitude, apart from the cooking that we do now at home, I would say my crazy thing is that I will now walk the talk as we talk about Live A, and decided to finally sign up for that Elements of AI course, because with less events going on and with no traveling through the city of Berlin, there's a lot of time left over in the evenings to do something like that. Yeah. Dominic, now tell us more about Kiron.
I think it's actually you made a nice comment, Sabrina, because I think that's very much to do with the Kiron situation. All of us who work for Kiron are now basically walking the talk, because basically for Kiron, our goal is to help refugee students right across the world to get new learning opportunities, and we do that through digital learning. So in fact, what our offer is to try and think of how can we make an interesting educational environment, a learning space for our learners who come onto our platform. But essentially, all of these learners are somewhere in a little room somewhere, or in a bigger room with lots of other people trying to learn these courses at the same time. And I find that really quite interesting, because of course, we've always concept when we've been designing our work, but now all of us are totally living this situation. So I'm hoping in a way that this will help us at Kiron as well to understand better what challenges our students have. And that's why I'm super keen that we've got this Kiron Talks season kind of started now, because it always gives us an opportunity now to talk to other people about aspects of the learning experience, which are very interesting for us at Kiron, and hopefully for other people who are listening as well. So I'm super happy to have Jonghwi here. Also, I know her very well. We've worked together with UNESCO, and the way I actually got Jonghwi here is because we were both bothered by a colleague from UNESCO within the last week who said, quick, I need to get a note ready for distance learning. Can you actually help with some ideas and with some editing? So that's how we've been in contact. But I'm super happy that you're here, Jonghwi.
Thank you.
Yeah. Jonghwi, then this is the thing. Dominic talks about learning online, and I was just also thinking, and we have been discussing, to be able to learn online, you already need to know something. That means you need to know to press the right buttons, right? So the digital skills themselves are already something that the students of what age ever. So you're from Asia, you're from South Korea. Are the Asians already born with the ability to push the right buttons?
Well, I mean, that's we actually thought about these digital skills long ago, and then it's not just anymore how to click the buttons anymore. Because if you think of Corona situation, so you don't have to click anything. You just have so many information coming into you if you have a smartphone, right? And it's more like how you can evaluate the information, how you can use those information, how you can information, and how you can participate in that kind of discussion as a digital citizen, right? So my previous work in UNESCO Bangkok office, which supports 46 member states in Asia Pacific, all the way from Iran and Central Asia to the small island countries like Cook Island and Solomon Islands in the Pacific, we were actually having a lot of requests from our countries. They say, look, we know digital skills are very important, but we know also digital skills shouldn't be a goal, because nowadays young people know how to use it, but they probably don't know how to use it responsibly and safely. So they asked us many times, how can we ensure that our kids, our children are actually using technology in a responsible and safe way? So then we did some study, in Asia Pacific, and we tried to come up with some framework for the government to use, right? So those framework for digital citizenship are 5 domains. One is digital literacy, what you are talking about, Tino. The digital literacy is basic traditional digital skills. And then the other 4 others are something that you need to be a digital citizen. For example, digital safety and resilience, digital participation and agency, digital emotional intelligence, and digital creativity and innovation. So those are the 5. And then we provided some tools to measure that. And we had to test whether the tools are working. So we did a pilot test with 5,000 students in Asia. Those countries are Bangladesh, Vietnam, Fiji, and South Korea. So those 4 countries participated in the pilot. And what we found is really interesting. I told you 5 domains, right? Can you, I'm just testing you whether you were paying attention to me. So the 5 domains. Can you guess which domain was the highest score?
Of what people are
high
able to do?
in what sense?
So highest competencies. First of all, do you think all these 4 countries, you see Vietnam, Bangladesh, Fiji, and South Korea, they have very different ICT development status, right? Do you think the patterns of the competencies are similar of those 4 countries, first of all?
Well, maybe in the digital emotional intelligence, I would say. But I don't know. I mean, like, I really don't know. I'm not
good try.
That's something that people usually have in common, right?
Right. Yeah. Good try. Okay.
I mean,
Dominic, Tino?
Yeah. So I would think often with these kind of things, when we talk about digital literacy, it's on a very low level, it's things like, can you save a file? Can you move a file from one place to another? So I imagine everyone can do that. Not so everyone who's had access to a device. But of course, I'm always thinking of my nephew. One of my nephews is, he's going to kill me if he's listening now because I can't remember his age. I think he's 15, let's say. But
let's say, okay.
Let's say, for the sake of argument, probably he isn't watching. He's grown up in a world where his experience of digital has been a smartphone. And on a smartphone, mostly you're not doing much apart from opening a couple of things. You might be if it's about installing an app, you can install an app. But if it's about like change, probably even there it starts getting weaker. So I would expect though of all of those, probably the literacy or my guess, literacy scored highest.
Okay, Tino, Would you like to try? Did you
Well,
listen?
no, yeah, but I have so many other associations that I wonder. I've also a stepson who is 17 now, and he's also very much into his smartphone, and his skills to use the computer, which he has, are actually not so high yet. And he's, well, maybe he's not typical, but maybe he's normal, and these skills go together with other skills, something that is dependent on the computer. This is how to organize yourself, how to
That's
look
totally
at
true.
topics or tasks in a systematic way. And so, no, I have no guess. I'm very curious. Of course, I suppose that in South Korea these abilities are most advanced because it's the country with the highest technological economy. But no, I don't know. You tell me.
Yeah, so it was quite surprising, actually. It's surprising, interesting in a very good way, because these 4 countries, we intentionally chose those 4 countries to see whether the ICT development status affects the skills or the competencies of the kids. Surprise was really common patterns across all 4 countries. Okay. And then the highest competencies that the students show was digital safety and resilience.
Wow.
And the lowest competencies that they showed was digital creativity. So that tells we just try to understand why, and we kind of how can I say, we've inferred that probably our education system focuses too much on the safety issue. Okay, internet safety, digital safety, and we try to kind of try to prevent our kids from using those unsafe contents or insecure connections and all those kind of things. But we do much less, probably much less than we should, on fostering creativity and innovation in the digital space.
Yeah,
it's same with all 4 countries, even Korea, Bangladesh, Fiji, and Vietnam. So that was quite interesting findings. And you just talked about these access issues. You say if any kid has an access to the devices, they would know how to do it, right? Another surprising thing that we actually found from the study was as many as 10% of the Bangladesh and 8% of Fiji kids who responded to the survey. We surveyed 15-year-old kids, by the way. It's not Dominic's age, but we surveyed 15-year-old. At age of 15, this 10% of the kids in Fiji and Bangladesh has never exposed to any of those devices. Any. And also our correlation shows that this exposed to the devices are positively related to the scores of the competencies, which is very natural. So digital device still exist, and it's actually very worrisome when we are talking about this nationwide online school opening, right? But
that's what I was thinking, that this is very interesting because you're right. I mean, I'm thinking now also at a bit of a situation that I would know in Germany as well. There's kind of focus on, we have to protect the children from the distraction, etc., from mobile phones. And then we have to talk a lot about privacy, data protection, etc. We're in a situation suddenly now, right across the world, where we're having this so-called online pivot, where it seems that exactly these topics have gone out the window first. Because everyone's like, doesn't matter, let's just make it happen. And it's really interesting because in a way, at the time when the where the kind of the dynamic of having to use devices or not was rather low, somehow then it was much easier to talk about, be protective about this, we need to be super careful. And suddenly now we've got to a phase where everyone's supposed to use these devices because, or use the internet, use all sorts of different software, often because of the things that the software that one would like to use, and I'm thinking particularly of video. That one is so overused at the moment that you've got no access, so you're using an alternative. So it's interesting, this whole kind of safety thing has suddenly, in this phase, gone out the window. So I think that's going to be interesting, because that somehow has to come back, because it is a key topic.
Well, there's another aspect that pops up in my mind. I made a report once about South Korea when the Olympics were there, the Winter Olympics. And this was about the schools and the way the students learn there. And not only the students, also the under a very, very high pressure. They're learning these 15 hours a day, these things that are unbelievable here in Germany. So when you talk, Jonghwi, with creativity, I mean, is this a question that you can ask only looking at the technical devices? I mean, the creativity, that means to combine things that haven't been combined before, would be only a question when you have the time and the environment and the partners and the friends and the tasks that would invite you to do so. While when you're only supposed to learn the stuff, the material and the quantities to make it over the exams, how can you expect of someone to be creative? So how is really the relation of the students to the technical devices in the context of their schools and their life?
I mean, you're definitely right. You know, there is little room left for creativity and innovation to be in place when you have these long hours of school work and high pressure for the college entrance exam and everything. So actually, it's one of the top priorities for the Ministry of Education of Korea, how to actually foster the creativity. I think it's kind of a cultural roots that we have. We have this Confucius philosophy about study, right? Which is nothing wrong, but it's very much memorization oriented, knowledge oriented, rather than applying or creating something. In the past, actually, there was key competencies, you know, like memorization and reciting and those kind of things would be the case in like previous century. But now we need to have some people who can actually apply and regenerate and change those knowledge into something useful, something relevant to the issues or problems that we are facing and then we will face in the future. So that's a big issue also in not just in Korea, I think in many East Asian countries, in those who are affected or influenced by this Confucius philosophy. Is that the answer to your question? Sorry.
Well, yeah. Well, I think in 10 hours, it can't be answered in 10 hours. It's very curious. It's very curious. So once again, this study you have done about the digital skills of the students in these different countries. Why was this study done, and with what purpose?
Yeah, so that's a good question. Because as I said at the beginning, we at UNESCO, our main purpose is actually to support developing countries and try to connect between the developed and developing countries in a productive way, right? And in many developing countries, just starting to introduce this ICT to young people. And some countries, many countries actually have access to devices by young people without pre-preparation for them to know what they should do, what shouldn't do, and those kind of things. And now many countries are actually facing an issue with this online bullying, online hate speech, and all these kind of things. And so many countries in Asia, they actually approached us because unlike other region, Asia is for IT companies, private sector, it's a big market, right? So all the devices are coming in now, young people, old people all has these smartphones. And now the government is quite having a big concern about how to actually educate people to use technology in a responsible way. But we try to find a way to guide the government. But most of the frameworks so far is developed by developed countries. Like EU has one, and it has their very good framework. Digital citizenship framework, and many Australia has one, but we try to kind of fix it to see whether it can fit into the developing country context. We couldn't do that, so we said, okay, then let's develop one to be inclusive of all the countries, no matter what the ICT development status is. And another reason is, as I said in the findings actually, but way before we kind of realized from the review that many of the frameworks are focusing too much on safety issue. Mm-hmm. And so we don't see the balanced approach between the risk and opportunities. For us, ICT is like a fire, you have to learn how to use it. You cannot live without it anymore, right? Yeah. And we cannot really take the ICT away from our young people. Then we are taking away opportunities from the young people, and they wouldn't allow it anyways, right? So then how to use fire in a responsible and productive way? That was our main issue. But not just focusing on safety issue, but how to use fire in a productive and effective way, using the maximum potential of the fire or ICT, right? So those are why we started the study. And I also, from the research background, I know research shouldn't stop at the research, right? Because so many research papers are only read by the researcher himself and the spouse of the researcher. So we try to make the research into the policy. How we can do that is to actually work with the ministry and government together. So we make the framework very practical. I can actually to the YouTube later. So any researchers, any government, anybody who wants to use this framework and 104 question questionnaire, you can download freely from our website and you can use it. It's all statistically valid. And after these 4 countries piloted, the words went out, and now 7 more countries are actually using it at the national level to measure or assess the digital citizenship competencies of their children.
Dominic?
Yes, just 1 second, because I would have a question for Jonghwi, and it's related to mentioned, which is, and we've talked about it a little bit, which is that we found that you found in the study the students were kind of weakest when it came to creativity and innovation with digital. And I'm wondering what the situation is now in South Korea. So now you said the government has this focus on trying to foster creativity. Now suddenly there's this huge movement where everything has to go digital. Are they using this momentum to actually be creative about a solution, or what are they doing in this situation?
It's actually quite hard because in Korea at the moment, as Tino, you just said, Korea. You read something, some article about Korean education system. It's
I wrote it.
big. Yeah, you wrote it. It's a big pressure system, right? So Korean government and parents, they will do anything to reopen the school. For them, it's not the virus anymore. It's the education that matters for them, right? So in Korea, every school from K to 12 start on the same day, the 2nd of March. It's from like 40, 50, 60 years ago. I went through that as a Korean citizen. So every school from K to 12 starts on the 2nd of March. And the pandemic in Korea in February. So the school couldn't open until last week. And we postponed the opening of the school until last week. But of course, as I said, they cannot wait anymore. So what the government did in school opening, starting from last week, a week ago, starting from seniors of lower secondary and up. Okay, so it's only grade 9 and 12 in European system. And so it's kind of a pilot to see whether it works. And then yesterday, actually, the whole school from grade 4 to 12 is now open. The government really did a lot of work to do this, right? They didn't just open. We thought about this inequality. We thought about the server capacity and everything. So, for example, the city of Seoul and many other cities in Korea, they already weighed how many kids don't have the devices, how many kids don't have Wi-Fi access and everything. So for the last 2 weeks, they put all the efforts to give the devices out and everything. So now we are kind of sure that everybody has device, everybody has Wi-Fi access or internet access. The problem, I think, is the Ministry of Education or the government over-trusted the capacity or relied on the IT and less pedagogical side or teachers, empowering teachers side, right? So what happened yesterday was the Ministry of Education, they kind of tried to use the same traditional way of teaching into the online. So the kids have to stay in front of the 6 hours a day, right? And so they start at the same time. So the day before, the Ministry of Education just said, the server is ready for 5 million students at the same time to access.
Wow.
That's enormous, right? And they said they are sure it's going to work. Yesterday, it didn't work. So the actual number was 3 million, not even 5 million, but actual number was 3 million. And the system, many parts of the country collapsed. And my friend anecdotally told me after 1 hour, this boy is grade 5. After 1 hour, nothing worked. So he just enjoyed the rest of the day doing nothing. So I don't think at the moment the Ministry of Education is thinking about curriculum, creativity, all these things. They just have to open the school first. Yep. And I don't know if that's the right way, but that's better than nothing. But I'm sure there are still a long way to go for the Ministry of Education to kind of try to still foster those creativity and innovation of the kids' mind using this online school system. But at the moment, I don't think it's really over their head. I don't think they have concern or they have any room to think about this creativity at the moment. They just have to check the attendance of the kids, whether they are there.
Jonghwi, but also, I mean, the kids in South Korea, they are also going, all of them, to private schools afterwards.
Yeah,
so there are, I don't know, there's so many in the capital and elsewhere. I suppose that these schools have found their individual solutions, don't they?
Yeah, the thing is, private schools are closed. It's banned now. So they're banned because of the coronavirus pandemic. So certainly all the kids, it's another concern. So I read this morning the news article from Korea that the parents are actually begging the Ministry of Education to open these private schools, because the online school for these parents are not working, and they don't want the kids to lag behind in terms of their learning skills, or in terms of the curriculum coverage. So some of the parents are actually begging the ministry to reopen this cram school, we call it, tutor school. And I don't think the Ministry of Education will say yes, because that would be, it would be very risky to have this cram school packed with the kids, they stay until like 1 a.m. there to study. So, but at the moment, the private schools are all closed.
I mean, the interesting point about that will be, sorry, Tino, I will answer your question for you, but the interesting point about that is these cram schools, they've always played a very important role in many of the Asian education systems, but we also know them in other countries as well, because their role is to prep very important university entrance exams. So, or sometimes it's even earlier, it's for the change from lower secondary into upper secondary education. But the interesting point will be that will mean that a whole kind of cohort will come very differently for these high-stake exams. So I wonder if there'll be a knock-on effect on how the high-stake exams are organized, because that would be the natural consequence.
Yeah, so that's exactly the biggest concern at the moment of all the parents in the upper secondary. And the ministry already announced that the high-stake exam or the college entrance exam, SAT of Korea, will be postponed for a month. So instead of November every year, it will be December this year. Actually, not just cram school thing, but also I just talked to my parent friends in Korea who said actually she's sending her kid to a public school, but a private school or a more, prestigious school. They are much better prepared for this. And then because of the pedagogical practices and everything, professional development of teachers in private schools and all this, the kids there are not feeling any difference in this online school situation. So that parent was actually quite worried about this widening inequality between public school kids and then private school kids because of the teaching skills and pedagogical approaches of the teachers.
Yeah. And that comes a bit back to what you said before, right? That, the key is that innovation and creativity and how to teach that, because I feel that's also the biggest challenge, right? Like there are so many opportunities, like especially for marginalized groups and everyone who usually wouldn't have had the access, right? But now with all those digital tools and with digitalization in general, they're there, right? It's a bit the question of like, how do you use that fire, as you called it before, right? And create it so you can actually handle it, or you can actually do something with it, right?
Right. I had one comment on that, and now I forgot. It will come back. So.
Tino, you wanted to all the time, and I kept on interrupting you.
Well, there's two lines of thoughts here. On one hand, of course, you cannot expect from if the teachers aren't, and if the schools don't offer the opportunity, the technology, the pedagogical setup to use it well. But I think we were talking about this study and the results of knowing some basic findings there, and we will learn about the students in Asia. Do you first of all, what you learn about the digital skills that you maybe didn't know before, and then maybe do you have a comparison? Would you say specific about them that you wouldn't apply to Europeans?
Yeah, it was a bit choppy when you were talking at the beginning, but I think this framework, actually, findings can be totally applied to any countries, in European countries as well. I don't think, if you look at the young people, I don't think there will be too much differences in terms of digital skills. As Dominic at the beginning said, digital skills are those very basic skills of saving the files, copy and paste, and those kind of things. What I would like to see, actually, if I have an opportunity to do the study in European countries, is actually that digital participation agency part. Because in Asia, actually, we are, again, from this Confucius philosophy, we, in a school, we are taught not to teachers, not to say anything to the teachers. And good students are always listening rather than rebelling or challenging, right? And so it was very interesting in this 4-country study. Korea is actually mostly the highest in other domains, but participation and agency, it was the lowest among the 4 countries. And participation and agencies actually was the second lowest competencies of the 4 countries as well. That actually probably explains the cultural background of Asia. So I actually want to see, if I have opportunity, whether this digital participation and agency, how to, effectively or responsibly participate in the civic engagement in digital space. I want to see actually if there is any difference between European countries and Asia.
Dominic, what do you say? What do you think about it?
What I think is very interesting is I was just wondering whether this participation and agency is connected to being creative and innovative. So when you start kind of interacting with people much more, then you get new ideas, you can develop things together. And I actually think this is probably one of the biggest challenges for a digital learning environment, because opportunities are there, as Sabrina was saying, with all the tools, you can create this great kind of interaction between people, but it's normally the last thing about when they're thinking about digital learning. And in a way, what we're seeing with this kind of emergency online learning in the COVID is it's fulfilling all the stereotypes first, which is get the content out there. Let's try and just transfer what we know from the normal lesson situation into a digital environment. And then we worry about the other things later. And I'm really hoping that, so that's why I think this framework you have is great. And I'm hoping that maybe help us think about what should be coming later. And so we can actually start earlier, start now.
Yeah, just I add another question for you there, because what I'm thinking about in that context as well is the great opportunity of individualization, right? Because that's usually one of the toughest challenges, no matter if you look at university or also in schools, that, like some are ahead, slower, or some kids are interested in a different branch of one topic. So, I mean, in general, that would be the best case scenario, right? Class learning online, and you can give different tasks to different classmates and individualize a bit the learning content. But in the end, that's maybe again a question how to actually do that in an operational way?
No, actually, that's what my daughter, who is 12 years old in Germany, she is doing this home-based learning, not the online, not like Korean way, like 100% online, but she's doing home-based learning, meaning the teachers are giving assignments through emails, and they sometimes twice a week they do this face-to-face check where they are at and those kind of things. So my daughter actually told me that one of the biggest perks of this online learning is learning at her pace. So she doesn't have to be pressured by the time, and she can always do whenever she wants to do it, and she doesn't have to worry about how much others are taking time compared to her. So that's actually the biggest perks that she said to me as a perk of online learning. Yeah. And also, going back to, I know we are running out of time, but going back to what Dominic was saying in terms of to think later and what we have to do it now. It was actually quite interesting when Dominic this prep meeting for this talk. So it's quite amazing to me as an Asian, like in Korea and in Singapore, in China. Now we are using this GPS and the smartphone to trace the COVID virus infected patients, and try to warn other people not to go around those areas. And it's quite helpful, to be honest. And I have to say my parents rely on that information quite a lot because they are old. They don't know where the infected people are gathering. So we found it very useful. But then I read an article by a French journalist saying this is total violence of privacy. And actually, European countries are accusing these Asian countries, Singapore, Korea, China, of violating the privacy. But I really want to know your view about this, because I think what comes first goes next should be, it's cultural view, but I think people's lives should go first, I think, rather than, I don't know. That's very amazing experience so far to me, that people found it violence to the privacy, then life-saving. So that was quite interesting point that I take actually from this crisis.
Well, Jonghwi, in Europe, and especially in Germany, we are very much, let's say, biased in the media, in the public opinion, in favor of the United States. And there are, I think, unproven propaganda and opinion around that is looking for scapegoats and enemies, actually, like Russia and China, which is not substantiated, and which is for which we don't have a lot of real proof and confirmation. And someone who's really thinking critically wouldn't say these things about China without saying first that we are, of course, all the time surveilled by the NSA or by American companies or the American government that knows so much about even the private phone of our chancellor. So that this question that you ask about the opinion about Chinese or Asian states violating the privacy, that is not quite a serious. It's serious in this public opinion is very much biased there. But I think the reality about the reality of this, we don't know enough to make a proper statement. And we would rather be against the Russians or the Chinese, not me, but in a general sense, because that's what we get to know. That's what we are told. And in this sense, I can tell you that we're quite aware of this biased information we get here. We don't information about the life in South Korea, about the life in Iran, and about not even of the European countries. I was on Mother now, and the news are so little. The range of countries that we got to see and to what we learn about is so tight, is so narrow. So the opinion about Asia is very much not based on a lot of information, I would say.
I mean, coming back to the question of whether this an app is an invasion of privacy and if it's the state overstepping a mark, I think everyone knows it's a very careful balancing act to try and make sure that you develop something which somehow is very carefully anonymous and where the information cannot be connected to individual people, etc. And I think this is a huge challenge. So, and I think we would tend, you're right, in many European countries, certainly in Germany, we would tend to be against those kind of things first because we're always wary of whether the state is overstepping a mark. But I heard a nice joke about exactly the same situation where somebody said, if you would give payback, give payback points for having this app, so everyone would use it. So we have this problem anyway, which is like, if it comes from something and it's somehow, oh no, it's just trivial, whatever, I'm getting some payback points now, I can get my next toilet roll cheaper. Then people, somehow they just drop this whole protectiveness and being careful and everything. And this is really back to this point that actually digital safety is important. But I'm hoping actually that we also get to a phase now where we can talk about digital safety really in the context of really using digital solutions. Because digital safety, and I think this was a bit of your point, has often been more of an argument of don't do that. So it's like, and we know this very much in Germany with not have a mobile phone in your classroom. So no one's thinking, but there are lots of projects where it's actually used the other way around on a school level. But there's this kind of general thing of like, let's just block things. And that's why I find the situation we're in really quite interesting, because at the moment we can't block things because solutions, but it'll be interesting of what kind of happens afterwards. I think we have to close in a minute, Tino.
Yeah.
Well, no, I see still a very long 7 minutes ahead of us. So Sabrina, please contradict Dominic, but harshly.
No, I'm not contradicting at all, but I feel, I mean, of course it's about the safety, but I feel, again, it's much more about the literacy, right? Because in the end, like one of the key problems we have right now is a lot of fake news and wrong information out there. And I feel that's just contributing to the insecurity, actually, like the perceived insecurity, even like no matter if it's due to health conditions or also due to those questions related to data security and everything. And in the end, it comes down again to like how many people actually understand how data is collected, right? And how you can collect it in a way that it's anonymized, for example, right? Or, I mean, how you can also liberally decide to donate your data. Like I've seen that before. I think it was, I think it's even an app from the Robert Koch Institute where you can like proactively donate your data so they can gain more information on that, right? So I feel we can only step ahead there. And I mean, that's again a way of using knowledge to make policy, right? Like people need to actually understand what they're talking about. And then I feel there can be like a broad consensus, not based on, you know, like a top-down approach, but really like a bottom-up feeling of, okay, yeah, that's what we should go ahead in order to save more people, and knowing that it won't harm us if we do it in a certain way.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. And also, whenever I kind of present this study result, who's listening is usually adults, right? My audience is usually adults. And they're all saying, they have problem with these 5 domains. It's not the kids, it's adults who have to guide the youngers. And those, as you just said, the fake news, who's fooled by this fake news is actually many adults, and they don't really know how to evaluate and critically evaluate the source of the information, especially elderly. For example, my own father, who's 83, he thinks all the information written is true. Because that's when he was young, the newspaper is the source of the information, and even messengers. Sometimes they say they got it from this newspaper, that newspaper. He trusted, and the problem is he circulate those information to other elders, and so. I really want to do in my institute, UNESCO Institute for Lifelong Learning, is bring these 5 domains into the adults and also elderly. And I think elder really needs to know, now AI is with us, right? So we don't know what machine learning is what kind of things machine is learning from us, from our data, and how they kind of use this data to do something. Right. And me as an adult and my father, my mother's generation, they should know what they contribute and what are the result of their contribution. Right. So that's the next project that I really want to pursue in UNESCO, to bring this framework to the adult and elderly.
Yeah, I think that's so important, because it's absolutely right that this is something that always makes me a bit nervous, is whenever we talk skills, we're always talking about making sure the young children have them, or the people, the kids in schools. But the way I see it, it's what about everyone else? Everyone needs to have these kind of skills, as you rightly say. And if they don't, then you get into these kind of debates, which I had recently with my family here, where one of the elder generation was convinced that the Facebook Messenger is listening to everything you say and is then creating adverts for that. And of course, it's a bit like a horoscope. If you have those kind of general idea, at some point or other, it will be, in some moment in time, it will look like those 2 things have happened together. And so you say, okay, well, then it must be true. And it was quite a big, heated debate we had about the fact that that definitely doesn't happen. I hope.
Well, digital skills is a wild field of to learn about. It's not only about digital skills; it's about skills. It's about the question: what do we want the young people, or what do we want ourselves and the generation to learn? And to, for instance, to let the young people a little bit more alone to learn what they want would be an interesting thing to ask, but not an education minister, of course. I find it really fascinating. I hope you can put the link to your study and the results, or maybe the abstract into the commentary section. And Sabrina, do we know what's going on next week?
It's always a big secret. No, as we just started, we can't always reveal the guests for next week already up front. But I would say we promise to get better at that in the upcoming weeks. But one thing I would say is sure that it stays interesting, because there are so many different angles and issue areas to tackle within this wide field. Yeah, so stay tuned and watch out on Twitter and LinkedIn, I would say, for all the updates.
I would also say that we're also quite open. So if anyone's got any suggestions that they think we should be talking about a particular topic or a particular, just recommend it to us and we'll see what we can do.
Dominic, this is a thing I just need to ask because I didn't know where is our talk online. How can you find it? And last question, please, from my side. When we had the talk last week, were there comments or questions? And what did you see? How is that the reaction?
I'll tell you two things on that. So, firstly, the main place to look for to see the previous talks and also the upcoming talk, the Kiron Open Higher Education channel on YouTube. We have been looking at the viewing figures, so they're looking quite good. So we can probably tell you more about them maybe next week. Maybe we can even start analyzing them soon, which would be very nice. And people are welcome to comment during our talks as well. I can't look at them because I'm a rather kind of back to front way of getting this to YouTube. People might have noticed next time I have to turn off the notifications because I didn't realize that would be coming up like that. Last time we were doing things in the evening and I wasn't getting any notifications. So we're just doing, Sabrina and I always had the idea, we think this is important to have this kind of discussion format. We're trying to keep it very informal and conversational. And we're just trying to make it run. If it runs a little bit longer, we might get a little bit more professional as well. But as you see, the main point is we're already getting really great guests. And I'd like to really thank you, Jonghwi, for taking part. You may have seen one of the notifications that came across was one of our colleagues saying this was the best talk so far. So thanks very much.
That's nice. Thanks for having me here. I really enjoyed it a lot. If you don't have any guests next week, I can come again. Yeah. No, just kidding. That's the worst scenario.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay, then.
Enjoyed it a lot. Thank you very much.
Goodbye.
Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
See you next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.